and welcome to this week's energy forecast. My name is Laura. Welcome back, Rate Your Happy family. I hope this past week has treated you well. I know that there's a lot coming up for people, stuff that maybe you thought you were done with, or things that you feel like shouldn't be happening anymore. But first thing I want to remind you of is when something comes up, maybe for the 10,000th time, and you're sick and tired of it, well, one, it's good to know your patterns. It's good to know what continues to show up for you. But also know that when a pattern arises again, it's because it's continuing to dissolve. Something that's been so imprinted on you, whether it's conditioning or trauma, right? There's a density to it. And so as it continues to arise, it means it's softening. It means it's lightening up. But it's really interesting as you get closer to kind of, I guess you could call it the end or the full transmutation of said dense situation that continues to arise, it actually becomes heavier before it becomes lighter. It's like when you're going to change something in your life, you often are met with the most insecurities when you're like, I'm moving towards something that's more of a match to me. Why is it getting harder? Why is this feeling more dense than when I was just in my regular day-to-day, not changing anything at all? Well, when we go to change anything, a lot of stuff gets brought up. Stuff from the past, stuff that, maybe we're feeling anxiety about in the future. But know that if something's coming up, it means you're making progress, not going backwards. We don't ever go backwards. It's always motion forward. So if a pattern continues to show up for you, it means progress. It means you've taken steps forward and you're ready to look at this pattern again to continue to dissolve and transmute whatever's up for you. In our experiences, we obviously, as you know, if you've been a human for longer than 10 minutes on the planet, you know that we experience suffering. And I know this happened to many people in many different ways, but there's been experiences where you feel so good. Things are working out so well for you and you're like, wow, could it get any better? And then the rug gets pulled from underneath you. Some shit hits the fan and you're like, how? I've been feeling so good. Like, why does this life stuff have to keep happening? This is really hard for me to deal with. And I feel like this shouldn't be happening. And there's a couple things here. One thing is when life stuff happens that we immediately turn to ourselves and go, what part did I play in this? How did I call this in? Which is not a bad thing, but when stuff outside of your control, like say you lose a family member, you didn't really have power there, unless you murdered them, but let's not even go there. You didn't really have power there, right? So why is, oh, my life was feeling so good and then I lost this person and now it's feeling so bad. What did I do to deserve this? It's like, whoa, hold on a second here. You are not the grand manager in the sky. You are not the one who called the shots when that person died or not, right? So it's first looking at, okay, the life circumstances, the suffering in my life, sometimes I play a part in that, and in other people's experience, I do not play a part in that. You cannot make someone feel some sort of way. You cannot push someone to do something. We all have free will and we all make deliberate choices. So know that when things feel really good, to enjoy it, because there is life stuff that happens. The suffering that happens is sometimes obvious why, and other times you're going, how did we get here? And I had an experience a year ago where I was asking myself that question. I was the happiest I had ever been, ever. Through all the different experiences I have had, I have never been happier Then a very traumatic accident happened with my niece and the dog that we had, and in a moment everything changed. What was so happy was then the worst day of my life, and it was the worst day of my life. A year has gone by, and I look back at the worst day of my life, and I can say that I have never loved myself more. Isn't that wild? That the intensity to which we can experience life and suffer and hurt and feel hopeless and such despair, 365 days go by and you're on the complete opposite end of that spectrum. It's wild. It really speaks to our resilience as humans and also our ability to heal. You can heal through what you're going through, but there has to be a willingness and mostly a willingness to take responsibility for your part and making a commitment or a promise to yourself that I am not going to recreate this pattern for myself. I am going to change what I can change, because in that scenario for me, I look back and Brad and I both were like, okay, how do we take full responsibility here? How this is the only way we can make it right, if that's even, like, I can't even say that to make it right, but to not allow this to be purposeless suffering for all involved. We have to come out better humans than we went into this, because that's all we got right now. Other people suffered because of our choices. And again, I'm not the grand manager in the sky. How that all combined to be what it was, right? Every person, every animal, right? We're all intertwined in this connection and how that all unfolded. And I have to give my niece her stuff, the dog his stuff, Brad his stuff, and take full ownership for my part in this and what I will do different going into my future. And in that year of deep contemplation that I've experienced, I have undergone an immense amount of transformation internally. Maybe you look at the surroundings of my life, not much has changed, but internally, I am a completely different person than I was a year ago. And if I could go visit my, year past self and say, Laura, I know this feels like the worst possible scenario for you to be in, but I'm telling you, you make it out. Every one of you make it out of this hole better than you were, especially right now. I'd be like, fuck off. No, I don't believe you. So I can only say this now because I've gone through this experience, that everything that you go through isn't a punishment. It is a tool to allow you to up-level. Do our life lessons have to be painful like that? Certainly not. But we humans tend to be a little bit dense. We get in our own way. You are your biggest problem. I am my own biggest problem. 100% of the time, you, me, I, whoever I'm talking to here, we are our own biggest problem. It's not your son, it's not your husband, it's not your wife, it's not the dog, it's not your family, it's you. You are your biggest problem. You are the biggest thing that gets in your way to the thing that you want, to the freedom you seek, to the clear-minded, clear-conscious self that you want to be. You are what gets in your way. And I'm saying this so kind of matter of fact because in my past year experience, taking full ownership for the shit that the part I played in that and what I was willing to take on for responsibility, it has changed me so tremendously that I want to pass this wisdom on to you. But I know my words are just words, that your personal experience is going to be your greatest teacher. And all I can share is my experience. That's really what I do. The depths to which I have felt pain is the depths to which I can hold space for you in your pain and your experience, but I cannot take responsibility for you on your behalf. I cannot walk you through every thought you have and try to, move you away from the ledge of despair. That's up to you. But you can put in the legwork. You can get the support. You can go to therapy. You can get Reiki. You can get hypnotized. You can do these things that will assist you. But ultimately, you're the one that needs to take responsibility and ownership for your part in your life. And the curse, right? Blessing and the curse side of that is, fuck, I'm human and I'm imperfect and I mess up and I do things that aren't ideal. And then the blessing is I am human and I do things that are ideal, but I can take ownership and I'm powerful and I can play a part in the unfolding of my life to some degree. Life isn't just happening to you. You play a part in it. You play a part in it. I will just leave that right there for you. So if you're currently suffering, asking yourself, how can I take responsibility for the unfoldings right now? What is my part? Well, I know she did. No. Leave her out of it. What about you? What did you learn with the current dilemma that you're facing? What are you learning? What can you pull back? Let's kind of like unstick ourselves from the drama and ask yourself, what am I learning? What am I? Maybe it's uncomfortable, but I'm ready to see how I get in my own way. Jordan Peterson talks about, what does he say? He says something along the lines of like, what stupid things are you doing? Something along the line. What stupid things are you doing to yourself that are keeping you from that goal of yours? We all do stupid stuff. We all, so you can call it self-sabotage, but it's really a lack of wanting to take responsibility, because responsibility is heavy. It's hard, but in my experience, it sets you free. So take as much responsibility as you can, not in the sense of, oh, I'm the victim and I have to take on so much. Not in the sense of like, I'll carry that because I'm so tough. No, responsibility, and I played a part in this, as did all of us, but I can only take my share of it, so I'm gonna do so. So yesterday I had a wicked headache. I am training for my black belt in Krav Maga, and I really want to be in a certain state for my cardio to allow myself to perform at a certain level. So that means, I have 3 days of training just in my regular week, and then I have 4 other days where I need to be doing something, yes, rest is involved, but also like pushing my limits. And I have to do that on my own or with my instructor, which is also my fiance. So yesterday, him and I were kind of like back and forth, both being a little edgy. It was actually the year anniversary of that accident, so no fucking wonder. But of course, during it, both like, being a little bit tough on ourselves and therefore each other, when really what we needed was some softening and some kindness and compassion, because goddamn, what a year it's been. Anyway, so I'm like, I know I need to train, but I have a headache. I don't really want to do this. I had an appointment later in the afternoon, and Brad would say I was kind of picking a fight. I would say I was just trying to clarify. Anyways, he brought up 2 different times, which he's never said this to me before. Why are you self-sabotaging? I was like, I can't say that I'm not, but maybe I am. And I in the midst of us conversating about, are we going to train now? Like, I'm not going to do it later. Like, it's now or not today. And, I have certain goals. I want to be in a certain condition to do these tests that I have to do over the next 3 months. So for me not to do that, to let this kind of argument get in the way of our training, because he was going to hold pads for me, I would be self-sabotaging myself, because I'm putting that off into the future. I'm like, oh, I'll do it later. But I had the choice, do I want to show up for myself even though I feel frustrated with the person that's holding the pads for me, but he's ultimately trying to help me get better for me? Do I want to, can I move past that discomfort of like that inner child that's like, I don't want to play with you? Or am I going to self-sabotage and say, you know what, I'm just going to leave. I'm going to go out on my own, right? And I have a habit, as does Brad, of being counter-dependent. We're like, I don't need nobody. I don't know why that came out like that, but we get like that. So as he said, I like, why are you self-sabotaging? I'm like, I don't want to take responsibility right now. I don't want to take this on. I don't want to exert energy. And just noticing where I had an aversion to taking on the responsibility of training, right? Who is that responsibility to? Me. No one else cares. No one else, like, you know, if I don't pass the test, that's me. That's my failure. If I feel like shit and I almost puke during the test, that's on me. That's not on anybody else. So it's like, I really am self-sabotaging. And I actually didn't say thank you to him about this yet, but I'm definitely gonna say thank you because, wow. Yeah, like how often are we having an aversion to responsibility, which ends up being, you know, a detriment to us? And what is that about anyway? Do I not feel good enough? And it's like, yeah, there's a little bit of, well, if I don't train, then if I fail, then whatever, right? And it's like, no, this is what I was talking about at the very beginning. It's like when we're at that growth point, we get the pressure, like it pushes back on us in such a way that it's like, I'll just stay the same. So what I ended up doing yesterday for the training, I was like, you know, I'm like, I don't want to do this. And like the little girl in me is like, And I was like, fine, I'll just do it. In the first round, like I'm supposed to be going all out for as long as I can. And I'm like punching like, and then I was like, okay, Laura, let's do this for real. If you're gonna show up 100%. If you're not gonna show up, don't fucking show up. But like, let's do this. I ended up showing up, I worked through it, and it was like all that resistance, all that tension, all that like inner turmoil and that frustration that was projected at Brad when it had nothing to do with him at all. It's my own stuff going on. I was like leaning into that discomfort, leaning into that sharpness of like, oh, I don't want to show up for me, but I do want to show up for me, and showing up anyway, almost being the responsible parent and adult to myself and doing what was best for me, regardless of how it felt. It was what was best for me. Afterwards, I mean, and even into today, like I wake up almost every Monday. This has been a habit of mine of like feeling like a bit anxious. And I had a bunch of sessions today earlier before this. And I was like, oh my God. And I woke up like chilling. I feel good. I picked an outfit that just felt good. I did my hair. Like I was just like feeling good, moving through my day so easily. Why? I think showing up for myself yesterday. I think taking responsibility for my part in this. And again, this whole year has gone by since that traumatic incident with the dog. And I owe it to myself to listen to myself, even when the inner critic in me says, what's the point? You're gonna be too slow anyway. You're probably not even gonna pass anyway. And it's like, I hear you, but I'm gonna do the best that I can up until that point. And if I fail, I fail, but I know that I gave my 100%. I will take full responsibility for whatever the outcome is of this black belt testing, because I know day after day that I showed up for myself. That I ate the way that felt good, that I moved the way that felt good, I took care of my body, my mind, my emotions, all of it. And I took responsibility for my part in this. That note, I feel complete. I hope this was helpful for you. Sending you lots of love as you navigate this week and the turmoil you're going through. I am here for you if you need anything. I feel like I'm forgetting to say something, but I guess we'll wait till next time. Take good care. Thank you, thank you, thank you.